This is Zach with MyCodeTeacher.com, and this is the iPad lesson number 6 of our series that we're working on here. This lesson we're going to take the icons that we added from the last tutorial. We added them to the table view on the left side of the iPad, and we also structured the GUI interface on the iPad. And so we're going to take those icons and we're going to make it so that when you select a row in the list of icons available, it's going to appear in the right side and automatically choose a slot to go into. So let's go ahead and open up our application here, and this is the sound mixer. And so visually here I'll show you what's going on. Take a few seconds here to launch. Okay, so again we have to still work on getting our icons and everything to be centered when it's vertical, but we know that when it's horizontal everything appears in place. But in this tutorial we're not going to focus on that. We're going to focus on selecting an icon and having it appear right here in the center and choose the next available slot, as well as carry over the title of the sound that's selected and whether it's paused, stopped, or playing. And so let's go ahead and get started into that. Now the first thing we need to do in any table view tutorials, we need to look at any methods that are available to help us so we don't have to create our own. And it just so happens that Apple has a method on selecting a row, or a delegate method, and that's actually under should be under the masterviewcontroller.m and should be did select row. So let's look for it here. Did select row at index path. Okay, so this is where we're going to be putting our code when a row is selected. But first, I think the most important thing is to establish a connection between the detail view controller and the master view controller. And so if we're going to be able to do that, then we need to have an instance of the detail view controller available, the same instance that our data is currently on. And so we can do that by going into let's go ahead and go into our .h here, and we're going to go ahead and include the class detail view controller, which it already is, and we've got detail view controller down here. And so we know that, I believe, if we come to the very top here, we should see an instance of the detail view controller declared. Detail view, yep, here it is. Okay, and so when the view loads, it sets the detail view controller class to the last object of the top view controller. And so at that point, when this code is established, the detail view controller instance is passed into or the reference to the detail view controller instance is passed right into our class. So we don't have to establish a connection from the master view controller to the detail view controller. We will have to pass a connection from the detail view controller back to the master view controller at a later point, but most of the work is done here for us. So what we need to do is, if we go to our .h in the detail view controller, we have to make a method that's going to handle when an icon is added. And so just thinking here on everything that we're going to need, we're going to need our index path, and that's going to be because we need to define exactly what row and what section was selected so that we can pull the data from that row. So the icon, the title, and all that information. And then we also need the section information from our sections class that we that we made, which holds an array of sounds. And so we need both of those to be passed when we select a row. And so let's go ahead and make a method here, and let's put it here above the properties, and we'll go ahead and call it add icon, and we're going to need the section, we're going to need the index path, and we're going to need the section. Okay, so let's copy this so we don't have to type it all here again. And you'll see exactly why we need all of this information when we start constructing the method in the DetailViewController.m. So let's go ahead and go there. And let's just pick a logical place to put the method here. Let's just put it right here at the bottom. Get rid of the semicolon, and now let's go ahead and start constructing it. So we can see that we have an error there, which we'll fix here in a second. It's most likely just because we didn't import the section class. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to get our sound data, and that's because we need to allocate, when we drag an icon from the table view to the detail view, we need to allocate a sound. So if we drag the ocean and we drag it into slot 1, well then slot 1 sound is going to be the ocean. And so to do this in our DetailViewController.h, we need to declare 12 different sounds. And so we're going to say AV audio player, and we're going to say sound 1. So let's copy this, and actually we'll just go ahead and get all 12 out of the way. Okay, so sound 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So we need to import the audio toolbox framework as well as the actual package, so we'll do that here. So we've got import AV foundation, AV foundation.h. Okay, so we'll save that, and let's also import the audio toolbox. Audio toolbox. Okay. And now if we go to frameworks, so now to add the framework, let's go ahead and double click SoundMixer here, and under the linked frameworks and libraries, go ahead and click the plus, and we're looking for AV Foundation and Audio Toolbox. Let's go ahead and click that, and that's now in our project, and let's drag it under the frameworks here. Okay, and so now you should see this turn purple. And let's go ahead and import, not import, but add the class AV Audio Player, add class AV Foundation, add class section. Okay. And we're also going to need sounds, and that should be it for now. Okay, so when we drag a sound from the list, again, it's going to be assigned to one of these properties here. So let's go ahead and start with sound 1. Now, and we also need to make image views for the icons, because what's going to happen is we're going to make an image view that we're going to allocate when we select a row. And when we select a row, it's going to pass information to this function, which is going to give that image view the data it needs to match the existing data from the master view, if that makes sense. So basically, make things easier to understand, we're going to tell the existing image view to take the same image as the icon that we select in the row from the master view. So let's go ahead and we'll just do this for the first one. Let's just call this my button 1. Okay, and we'll save that right there. And so now we need to also make an IB outlet, and this is also going to be an image view. We're going to call this slot 1. and that's going to be for the existing slot. And we're going to put these all in different sections. That's why I'm doing a space here. Now we need a label for the slot 1. So slot 1 title, and we need another IB outlet, UI label, and this is going to be slot 1 status. There we go. So let's go ahead and bring that down. Make sure you have a capital L there. I didn't. And let's go to our storyboard and connect these here. And so click the equal here to kind of get a better view of where everything's at. Okay, so now if we go to View and File Inspector, we're going to come here, click on the Detail View Controller, and we see slot 1, which is right here. Okay, not sure what happened when I double click Detail View Controller. It should pop back up there. Okay, so we've got slot 1, then we've got slot 1 status, which is going to be right here. Click this again, and slot 1 title. I've never seen it do that before, so I'm not really sure what's going on when I do that. Okay, and that should be all that we need, so go ahead and save, and we're eventually going to have to duplicate this for all the rest. Okay, so we've got these connected right here. We've got our icon method, so let's go ahead and code our actual icon method now. Okay, so again, we need to get the existing sound data so that we know exactly what sound to allocate within our AV audio player instance, which in this case is going to be sound 1. So let's go ahead and make our sounds, get our current sound, and we're going to say section data. And remember, if we're passing the section data, that section is going to have an array. So we're going to say section data dot section array, and then object at index path. Now I just want to make something clear. When I programmed this, I made a bad mistake, and that's by calling this index path an index path, because Apple has an object called index path, or a UI index path, and this is actually just an integer, so it could have been called anything. So just if you're programming it and you want to change it from index path to index, that's great. If not, it doesn't really matter, because a variable can be named whatever it wants. But the purpose is to pass the index of the existing array, not the index path. So just a silly programmer mistake. Just needed to point it out there so that it doesn't confuse any of you. Okay, so we've got our section data, and we know that this is of type section. Now we need to import section up here at the top, and that error will likely go away. Yep, okay, so section array pops up there. Now it's just saying current sound isn't being used, which it will be here in a second. So now we need to make sure that if an icon is going to be placed, we want to place an icon in the next available slot. So let's step through each slot and see if it's empty. If it's empty, we'll go ahead and place the icon there. So in this case, if slot1 status dot text is equal to string empty, we'll make our own string there. Then let's go ahead and add the button. So remember, we need to allocate the buttons, and we made my button 1 right here in the .h, which needs to get the information from the master view controller, and it's going to tell that image what to look like, and we're going to make it look like the sound icon. So we're allocating a new image when we select a row, and it's going to look exactly like the icon in the existing row of the master view controller. So we're going to say my button 1 equals, let's go ahead and allocate a new image view, in it with image, and it's going to be current sound dot sound icon. And remember, the current sound is from the sounds class, and so the sound icon, we've got the exact specific sound based on the section and the exact index. So we've got the sound icon that goes along with that. And so the reason that this property isn't available is because we haven't included the sounds class. So we'll just say sounds.h, get rid of the extra n, and when we come down here it should pop up right there. There we go. Okay, so now we've allocated it with the image, and so the image is going to be the exact icon that we select from the row, but now we need to actually make the details of the frame. So mybutton1.frame equals, let's make a rectangle, cgrect make, and we're going to have that be right here in the center. So in the existing view in the center, and then self.view.center.y, it's going to be 57 by 57. And so basically we're looking at the view, and we're going to place the icon right in the center of the view, and it's only going to be 57 by 57 because that's the height and width of our icons. So now slot 1 status, we need to set it to stopped. Status.text equals stopped. And you can see with that right there, that's then making this slot unavailable because there's an icon in there. Later when we program it to be able to get rid of the icons, we're going to get rid of the, we're going to change stopped, we're going to set it back to empty. And then when we play the icon, it'll change from stopped to played. So let's go ahead and now set the title, undo what I just did there, and that'll be slot1 title.text equals current sound.sound title. And now we need to actually allocate the sound itself, and so that's going to be AV audio player allocate, initialize with the contents of a URL, ns URL, file URL with path. It's going to be from our bundle, ns bundle. I'll explain all this as I'm done typing it. Main bundle, path for resource, current sound.file name of type. And remember, this is from our class, which we passed by because we knew we were going to have to use that later, the type of file that it was. Current sound.file type. Error null. Okay. So we allocate a new sound that comes from an NS URL. An NS URL has a file URL in it that comes from the main bundle, which is anything that's included in your project, and the path for the resource after it accesses our main bundle. It's basically saying this is going to be part of our main bundle here. Now what's the path? So we get the file name and say that it's of this type. So that's how we know that sound1 will work. Then we need to use the audio player API and say prepare to play. So after it's loaded, then we're just going to prepare to play it so there's no delay when we drag it over the audio box to actually be able to play. Let's make the number of loops. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to find an unlimited set of loops. I tried 0, it didn't work. So I'm not sure if they've updated it by this time or not, but I just put 999999999. It's basically unlimited. And we'll say sound1. We're going to set the volume. This is a double or a float, and basically we're just going to set it to 1.0. So from 0.0 to 1.0, where 0.5 is 50% volume, 0.75 is 75% volume, that's going to be the volume range. And now let's go ahead and make sure we put our semicolon there. Now we need to actually add the button after we've set its sounds and all the properties it needs to have. Let's go ahead and add the button to the view. So we'll say self.view, add subview, my button 1. And so now when we play this, it should pop right up in the center of the screen. Actually, it won't. I can tell you why, and that's because we haven't added it in the did select row. Okay, so let's go ahead and add that really quick. Master view controller. If we come to the did select row, this is where we need to pass the data in. So if we go to the master view controller, and again, we can see that the did select row at index path, we need to be able to get pass in the existing data of the sound that's selected. And so let's call the detail view controller with the lowercase d, because that's the instance in here. Detail view controller, add icon. We're going to say index path dot section, because remember we needed the section view. So that's going to give us the exact section, and then we need the row. So we've got the section and then we've got the row, and that's how we can add, or that's how we can access the information that we need from our section and sounds class. So we've got our section, and now and index path. Remember, this is not a UI index path, it's just an integer. So index path dot row and section data sections object at index path dot section. Okay, so the section data is basically we are taking our entire section object and we're getting it based on the section. So we've got, for every section that we have, we've got a new instance of an object. Now whatever section it is on the table view, when you select it, it's going to pass in that section based on the index path dot section. So from there, we pass that information over to detail view controller, and we can get the details that we need based on this data passing into the function. So my question now here is why this isn't in the breakpoint here. So detail view controller, it looks like it's not accepting that. So let's go here to the .h, make sure it's added in, detail view controller, detail view controller. We still need to synthesize it, so we're just going to take out this piece right here and we'll save it, and the error should now go away. Okay, so there's one more thing that we have to do before running it. We're pretty much right there, but we do need to drag in our sounds, because if we don't, then the app is going to crash. So I've made this folder here, and the sounds are missing, but I want you to group them like this, and in the sounds file, which I'm going to include with your application, just select all the sounds and just drag them right into the project, and click copy items into destinations folder group if needed, and then just organize them like you see here. Okay, so these are no longer part of the file, so I need underwater, waves, dolphins, and whale song. And I'm going to pause here and organize them so you can see what it looks like when they're fully organized and imported into the application. So we'll see in a second. Okay, and we're back. So these are imported and now organized. So make sure that you keep your files organized. It's a lot easier to find them. It's obviously not mandatory, but it definitely helps when you're looking for a file. So we should be good to save and compile now. If we go ahead and run the simulator here, we'll go ahead and see that we can select the any option from the left side, and it'll go into the first slot. So here we go, we're compiling. We'll move this over here and let's go ahead and select the ocean, and there you go. So you can see that it appears, it titles it, and it changes it from empty to stopped. So now what we need to do is we need to animate this so that it goes from the center here and it shoots up to that slot. So let's go ahead and close out here. We'll go to our detail view controller, right where we were editing this before, and directly below the end of that conditional statement, below the My Button 1, we need to go ahead and put that animation. And so we'll use the UI view animations, and so we're going to say that we want to begin an animation. And since we're moving an image, this should work. It's using it's making animations on the existing UI view basically. So begin animations, and we're going to go ahead and say that there's nothing, nil, no context, and now we're going to set the animation duration. We're going to go ahead and say it's set to 0.3, and in between here and this closing statement, which commits the actual animation, is where the animation actually occurs. So we're going to say my button 1 dot center equals slot 1 dot center, and then we commit the animation. And so basically, over a period of 0.3 seconds, anything that happens in between here is going to occur. So if we're saying the center of my button 1 is now the center of slot 1, normally that would be instantaneous, but we're basically delaying it for 0.3 seconds so that it looks like an animation. So we'll go ahead and save it, and we'll go ahead and run and compile now. And let's select it, give it a sec, and there you go. It shoots right up there. It shoots right up there into the existing slot. So now we need to make sure, if we go into, now I already pre-filled this out, but basically if you go to your .h, your UI image view, instead of my button 1, you need to have 12 of these, okay? And we already selected all the slots and the slot titles and the slot statuses, but we definitely need to make sure that that there are 12 sounds and that there's 12 buttons. So my button 1, my button 2, my button 3, my button 4. So make sure you get that in there. And we'll come back here to the .m, and I only did that to save time. And so we're also going to be saving time by, I'm going to copy the existing code from my other project here, and we're going to paste right below here. And so this is the second slot. And so basically it's the exact same thing as up here, except we changed slot 1 and my button 1 to slot 2 and my button 2. So slot 2 status, my button 2, my button 2, slot 2 status, slot 2 title, sound 2, not sound 1, sound 2. Prepare to play sound 2, prepare to set the number of loops for sound 2, set the volume for sound 2, add my button 2 to the subview, and move my button 2 to slot 2's center. Okay? So now we should be able to add in 2 sounds. But let's go ahead and add in 3 and 4. I'm going to go ahead and copy this right here. So here's 3 and here's 4. Same concept. My button 2 turns to 3, 3 turns to 4. We'll copy 5 and 6 here. And I recommend that you just copy and paste to save time from the project files that I'm including. Here's 5, here's 6. Wasn't too fun to type out by hand, that's for sure. Here's 7 and 8. Let's get 9 and 10 in here. There's 9 and 10. And let's get 11 and 12. So go ahead and save that. And let's go ahead and compile. Maximize. And we should be able to click. So here's the ocean. Seagulls, wind chimes, aluminum chimes, brass chimes, distant foghorn, rain. Let's do country fire, night bugs, owls, cicadas, bullfrogs. And as you can see, everything's added in just fine, and it all animated. So what we need to do now in your own time, I'll do this for the next tutorial, is we had expanded the width of this label because you can see it gets cut off here. So we just need to expand the width of that label just to make it look a little bit nicer. and then we'll be right on track. So the next tutorial, we're gonna focus on dragging the icon around and getting it to play in the soundboard, possibly depending on the length of the video. And we're making definitely great progress, and we're getting close. So we'll see you in the next tutorial.